in this chapter, we will learn about consumer decision making. There are 4 learning objectives, and these are the 4 takeaways that I would like you to learn from the chapter. First one is the process of consumer decision making. So here we'll learn about the sort of sequential model, or the process through which consumers make purchase decision. Then we'll learn about 3 different types of consumer decisions. The third learning objective is to understand this concept of consumer involvement. And then the last part of the chapter looks at what are the different factors that influence the type of decisions that consumers make. So let's start with the first one. So here so this chapter is pretty much split into 2 halves. The first half is where we learn about the process that consumers make to purchase a product or not to purchase a product, and then the factors that influence the above. So let's start with this first model, and this is a very popular, well thought out purchase model that is used a lot in both theory and in practice. And according to this model, one argues that consumers make decisions in a 5-step process, right? So step 1 is this first phase, which is called need recognition, and that leads to the next one, information search, and then so on and so forth. Right? And then influencing this process are these different factors that can affect all different 5 steps. So important to remember that it's a linear model, which means step 1 leads to 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that it's also sequentially arranged, which means that the process begins with step 1, then that leads on to step 2, and so forth. So let's start with step 1. Step 1 is need recognition. And this is where the consumer recognizes that that there is an imbalance between my actual and my desired state, which means where I am and where I want to be, right? And it's this imbalance, or this recognition of an imbalance, that creates a need for a product or a service. So for example, my laundry detergent has finished, I need to do more laundry, and therefore I need a new gallon of laundry detergent. And that imbalance between where I am, which is I don't have laundry detergent, and where I want to be, which is I want to be able to finish my laundry, is what creates a need to purchase a laundry detergent gallon. So marketers are not just satisfied with needs, right? So we want needs to be converted into wants. And a want is where a consumer has been able to associate a specific product or sometimes a brand to satisfy that need. So for example, a need is I'm hungry and I want to get something to eat. A want is where that consumer has been able to translate that need into a specific product or even a brand. So I'm hungry, I want to get something to eat is a need. I'm hungry and I want a Big Mac. Now see how the consumer has converted that need into a want, right? So take a look at this example, great example here about how this company Olay is differentiating itself and saying you just don't need a body wash to clean yourself, but you want Olay because it is an ultra moisturizer that rises above basic cleaning, right? So see how it's converting consumer need for personal hygiene into a want for a specific brand. The next step is information search. So after the consumer has identified a need, the consumer starts to look for information. And there are 2 sources, stuff I already know in memory and external. So, talk to people, look at websites, read brochures. As the consumer goes through the information search, what starts to happen is the consumer starts to build an evoke set or a consideration set. So I start kind of grouping 3 or 4 brands into my subset from which most likely I will purchase one particular product. The third step is to evaluate my alternatives. So let's say I have 5 different brands in my evoke set, and in your example that might have been 5 different colleges that you were looking at, and then you go through a certain evaluation process. You might use price, you might use some other evaluation criteria, you might rank the different brands, and that helps you select a brand to purchase. The fourth step of course, is to purchase the product. And then the fifth step is an important one for marketers called post-purchase behavior. And here, marketers are very focused on avoiding this consumer response called cognitive dissonance. This is where the consumer is doubting his or her purchase. Whether I made the right decision, should I have waited for a sale, did I buy the right color? And so marketers don't want consumers to experience any anxiety or any doubt about their purchase. And so what they do is they use a lot of follow-up and guarantees and warranties and no hassle return policies, etc., to minimize this dissonance that a consumer might experience. So look at this example here for a simple orange juice, and look at how the company is offering this orange back, simply orange guarantee, where it says if you're not convinced that this orange juice tastes like freshly squeezed, you can bring it back and we will give you a bag of fresh oranges, as you see here in the visual, to make your own freshly squeezed orange juice. So the second learning objective was to understand that there are 3 different types of consumer buying decisions. So the model that we just studied with the 5 different steps in decision making, that model doesn't apply all the time. So maybe when you bought your morning cup of coffee, you didn't go through all the 5 steps. So this right-hand side type of decision, called extensive decision making, is when the consumer travels through each one of those 5 different steps. The one on the other end is the routine decision, where the consumer identifies a need and straight away jumps to step 4, which is purchase the product. And what's dictating this spectrum is this level of consumer involvement. So let's look at the different factors that influence the type of decision. And your textbook kind of gives you a nice description on each. The most important one on the top is this level of consumer involvement. So let's look at what that means. So consumer involvement is the amount of time and effort a buyer invests in searching and evaluating and all of those decision processes that we just learned about, right? So if I spend a lot of time searching and thinking about the purchase decision, I am a highly involved consumer. So what dictates the level of involvement? And again, your textbook kind of walks you through each one, but your previous experience, your interest with the product, if you have this perception that if I don't make the right decision, then the negative consequence of that purchase decision is going to be great, that's going to drive up involvement. And then social visibility. So let's look at what this social visibility is. So look at this ad here. It's for a simple toothbrush, right? And you're thinking, well, how can that be a high involvement product? So what the marketer is doing here is look at how they're focusing on whiter teeth that everyone will notice. And through that, the marketer is raising the level of social visibility, not the kind of toothbrush you use in the privacy of your bathroom, but the benefit that you get from using that toothbrush is what is driving the level of involvement in terms of the type of toothbrush you're going to buy. Okay, so in this module I'm going to stop here, and in the second module we'll learn about the different factors that influence buying decisions.